You ever have one of those mornings where you just know something weird is about to happen? That was me, standing in my hallway, about to make coffee, when suddenly there's this sharp knock at the storm door. And there she was, Margie Chandler, our HOA president, slapping some sheet of paper on the glass like she was serving a subpoena to an escaped goat. The word warrant screamed across the top in giant, copperplate font, just in case I'd somehow missed the point. I opened the door, took that paper like it was some kind of dead mouse, and, without thinking, ripped it right down the middle. That. And I kid you not, she folded like a cheap deck chair in a hurricane. So yeah, my name's Eric. I'm the quiet guy at the end of Cedar Loop, the one with the bonsai hobby and the 6 a.m. jog that bothers exactly nobody. I bought the smallest house in this neighborhood because all the brochures promised peaceful lanes and light touch governance, whatever that means. What they didn't put in. Miniature tree herd. I mean, those were my bonsai, just sitting quietly on the porch. Rookie move. I paid the fine just to get her off my back. Huge mistake. After that, she found a new violation too, which she claimed was too assertive. No, really. She'd staple these neon notices to my front door before sunrise, then drop gentle reminders on the neighborhood app about certain residents, usually men, for some reason, who refused to uphold community standards. When I finally asked her, as politely as I could, to stop photographing through my living room window, she just looked me in the eye and said, "Transparency ensures compliance." I started keeping records, just in case, but honestly I never expected it to get out of hand. But then she started trespassing. She'd step right onto my porch, measuring roof overhangs with a tape she kept in her purse. Sometimes I'd catch her peeking over my fence with a little step stool she called her civic elevation device. I mean, I'm not making this up. I've got photos. So, this one Saturday morning, 9:12 exactly, Margie rolls up to my door with two other HOA board folks. One had a clipboard. The other just looked nervous. Margie's holding a fancy-looking paper with a big fake seal on it. Looked suspiciously like a clip-art pelican. Signed by Judge Groves, Esquire, who, as I found out later, doesn't exist except maybe on novelty coffee mugs. This warrant was supposed to let her inspect every inch of my house, inside and out, for unauthorized plants, paint colors, and attitudes. That's right, attitudes. I looked at her and said, "Margie, that's not a warrant." She sniffed and said it was an administrative warrant under the Community Peace Act. I reminded her, as calmly as I could, that we live in Ohio. She stares at me and says, "Yes, the bigger community." That's when I tore it up. She actually tried to push her way into my house at that point. So I closed the door, nice and firm, and called the actual police, using the same calm I usually save for brewing tea or dealing with boundary disputes. 15 minutes later, Officer Griffin arrives. He takes one look at the torn warrant, with its pelican seal, and asks if we're filming a comedy sketch. Margie launches into this dramatic speech about aesthetic violations, but Officer Griffin just waits her out and asks, point blank, if she has my consent or a real, court-issued inspection order. Margie digs in her tote and produces another fake warrant and, I swear, a shiny gold badge that says HOA Marshal. Probably bought it on eBay. Griffin raises one eyebrow, so high it nearly leaves his face. He separates us, takes our statements, then reviews the footage from my doorbell. Camera. Everything's crystal clear. Margie trespassing, trying to push inside, waving that fake badge, declaring herself empowered by the board. Officer Griffin radios something to his partner, who just laughs, then turns to Margie and, using that patient kindergarten teacher tone, explains that HOAs aren't law enforcement, trespass is still trespass, and forging government docs is what he called a felony appetizer. He politely asks Margie to wait by the curb. Her cheeks go stop sign red. Not even an hour later, a city code inspector shows up. Margie's apparently filed half a dozen complaints about my non-compliant door color and what she described as a defiant ficus. The inspector glances at my front door, clearly eggshell, straight from the approved palette, admires the bonsai, then turns to Margie and asks if she sent his office a court order for entry. Margie gives this smile like she wants credit for inventing April. She says, for efficiency. The inspector picks up the fake doc like it might bite him and says, deadpan, "Ma'am, This is a crime. Griffin, the officer, switches his body cam on again. Margie makes a last-ditch stand, announcing she's been deputized by the board. Griffin just looks at her and says, "You can deputize a snack table, not a seizure." Then he reads her the statutes: criminal trespass, impersonating a public official, filing false instruments. Her two board buddies vanish, leaving nothing behind but her tote bag and the faint scent of cucumber melon body spray. By then, the neighbors have started gathering outside. Someone yells out, "Hey Eric, is that door color eggshell or tofu?" I answer, "Alabaster with boundaries," and the crowd actually cheers. Margie, now being walked to her Prius, leans in and hisses, "You'll regret tearing up a court document." Officer Griffin says, loud enough for everyone, "The only thing officially torn today was your confidence." Next thing you know, there's an emergency HOA meeting, standing room only, every folding chair filled, people whispering in panic. Turns out, I wasn't the only one who'd been written up for attitude violations or non-compliant energy. A motion to boot Margie passes 47-2. The two claim they misread the vote. The board issues a public apology, hires a real attorney to rewrite the rules, and officially bans inspections without written consent in a real city order, which, honestly, nobody's ever going to seek. Margie pled guilty to impersonating an official and wearing the fake badge, had to attend a class called "So You Think You're the Sheriff," and got a restraining order, 75 feet from my property unless she's with a licensed surveyor and has a reason approved by God himself. These days she jogs past my house wearing a visor. I straight ahead, like Medusa with a Fitbit. The board asked me to help rewrite the neighborhood guidelines. I kept them short. Mow your lawn, don't harass your neighbors, and the approved door color is whatever the factory calls beige. I started a new newsletter column, Know Your Rights and Your Cul-de-sac. Margie got a $1,500 fine and had to pay my legal fees, which felt like a win for everyone who just wants to live in peace. And if you're wondering, yeah, I still have my bonsai out front. No citations so far. But you know what they say, there's always next Tuesday that you'd think after a neighborhood showdown like that, things would finally quiet down, right? But honestly, life after the Great Warrant incident just got weird. For the first week, the whole cul-de-sac was buzzing like a beehive. Folks waving at me with these big grins, little kids riding their bikes past my driveway shouting, "Alabaster with boundaries," like it was some kind of secret code. Even Mr. Patel from 2 houses down, who hasn't spoken to anyone in years except his cats, brought over a mug of strong coffee and said, "Good job, my friend." About time someone stood up to the nonsense. I figured things would drift back to normal. But then, all these quiet little stories started trickling out. Turns out, Margie wasn't just on my case. She'd cited half the street for things like insufficiently whimsical yard decor or excessive holiday cheer. The worst was the Harris family, who'd gotten a violation for having their daughter's lemonade stand on the wrong side of the sidewalk. When I heard that, I just laughed, but it stung, because I realized how much people had been tiptoeing around her for years, afraid to rock the boat. It made me want to do more than just mow my own lawn and keep my head down. So, the next HOA board meeting, I actually showed up early, fresh notebook in hand, ready for whatever drama might still be lingering in the air. I half expected Margie to make a surprise entrance with another novelty badge, but no, she was gone, her name scrubbed from the agenda. Her tote bag replaced with a bowl of mints and a stack of apology forms. The new president, Mrs. Diaz, was nervous but determined, and she actually asked me to read aloud the new guidelines I'd helped draft. I kept it short, just like before. Respect your neighbors, don't fake warrants, and don't call code enforcement unless you're sure it's not about a tree with bad energy. Honestly, people seemed relieved, almost giddy, like they were finally breathing easy for the first time in ages. Someone even suggested we have a block party to reclaim the cul-de-sac, as Mr. Grant put it, waving a pair of barbecue tongs like a battle flag. That weekend, for the first time since I'd moved in, the whole street came together. Lawn chairs, lemonade, burgers, and more side dishes than I've seen outside of Thanksgiving. Kids chalked hopscotch on the sidewalk, and I even got talked into running a bonsai workshop. Yeah, apparently, I'm that guy now. But you know what? I didn't mind. For once, Everyone felt like neighbors instead of suspects. But just when I thought the universe was finally letting me catch a break, there was a new wrinkle. Late one evening, a knock at my redrawing lot lines to squeeze in new violations or, in one case, to claim a sliver of my side yard as community green space. Apparently, he'd felt pressured to sign off on it, but had second thoughts after seeing how she'd spun out of control. Inside the envelope were copies of emails, old surveys, and some very questionable notes in Margie's handwriting about future action plans. Let me tell you, my pulse was pounding. I knew this kind of stuff mattered, and not just for me. I spent half the night cross-referencing the old documents, then called a real surveyor, who confirmed my gut feeling. Margie had overstepped, but nothing official had ever changed hands. That little side yard, with the bonsai and the stone bench my dad gave me, still mine. No community green space, after all. I thought about letting it go, but in the morning, I decided folks deserved to know the truth. At the next newsletter deadline, I wrote it all up, no drama. No finger-pointing, just the facts and a little encouragement for everyone to double-check their own paperwork. I called it Boundaries Matter, and to my surprise, it turned into the most read article we'd ever had. After that, a couple of neighbors approached me with their own questions about property lines, old deeds, or just wanting help navigating all the paperwork Margie had left behind. It wasn't what I'd planned, but somehow, I became the unofficial calm down and check the facts guy of Cedar Loop. Which, I guess, is better than being the guy who just jogs by at sunrise. People started looking out for each other more, sharing garden tools, helping the Harris kid repaint her lemonade sign, even taking turns dog-sitting for folks on vacation. I felt like I was finally part of a community, not just another resident hiding from the next neon notice. As for Margie, well, every so often, I see her jogging by, visor pulled low, earbuds in, doing her best not to make eye contact with anyone. I don't wish her any harm. Truth is, I hope she finds a hobby that doesn't involve measuring other people's eaves at dawn. But the days of sneaky warrants and phantom board powers, those are over. At least in this little corner of Ohio. So yeah, maybe that's the real lesson. Sometimes, standing your ground means more than just tearing up a fake warrant or calling the cops. It's about giving folks permission to speak up, ask questions, and remember that we're all just neighbors at the end of the day. And if you ever find yourself facing a Community Peace Act warrant with a pelican seal, well, don't be afraid to laugh, call for backup, and keep your bonsai trees right where you want them. Because in the end, boundaries aren't just about property lines, they're about respect. And sometimes, just sometimes, they're about giving the neighborhood a reason to come together and cheer for beige doors and second chances.